From the leader of the Republicans, Senator McConnell. It's only a month ago. Quote, this is the Republican, Mitch McConnell. I think the handwriting is on the wall that we are going in a different direction in the fall, and I expect the president to lead it. He's referring to a proposal to keep the war going but end the anti-war movement by removing 100,000 American troops by the end of 2008. It's Republican leader. Then we have the Center for American Progress, whose director is John Podesta, former Chief of Staff of President Clinton's White House. They're issuing a report on Monday that goes further than their previous reports, and it calls for all troops, including the trainers, to be removed by next year. Their earlier report was combat troops out, leave the trainers. That's the Baker-Hamilton proposal. The new proposal, which should put certain people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in a tight bind, is to, since they've already endorsed the earlier proposal, this new proposal will be to get all the troops out, including the trainers. And it's going to identify a new problem that I think we need to campaign around. I'll get to that. But it's the fact that we have financed, armed, empowered, trained, equipped a sectarian, dysfunctional state that's engaged in ethnic cleansing, torture of prisoners, underground prisons. It's not a state that is a kumbaya, liberal, pluralistic Iraq in the making. It's a state, and yes, all sides are engaged in human rights violations, but we are supporting one side in particular. And this raises the prospect of hearings to examine why the United States government does not enforce the Leahy Amendment. Do you remember that? That came out of the previous generation of Central American activists. It says basically the United States is prohibited from funding, equipping, or supporting any state that is a human rights violator. So the argument that the present Iraqi state is at its core a human rights violator that we have created. It's our Frankenstein monster of our doing, makes it already arguably illegal under current law. And so for a prominent think tank to take this position, I think is interesting. I want to read you a quote, one other quote from another think tank. They're proliferating everywhere. They're usually because they're expecting a new president in a year or two, and they want to be eligible, so they have to present a lot of position papers now to qualify themselves for consideration in the next State Department or Pentagon. This is, I'll leave it anonymous because it's not out, but it'll be out soon. This one tacks to the right a little bit more, but it's a center-right position. Here's what they say. They're calling for a 4-year pull-out of all troops in stages, 100,000 this year, then the rest over a 3-year period. And I'm quoting, this should make you feel good. The transition from President Bush to his successor is getting more and more problematic as the American people continue to lose confidence in the Iraq war and step up their pressure on candidates from both parties. If no, and I'm still quoting further, if no bipartisan consensus is reached before the Democratic and Republican primaries, that would be in 6 months, the next president will likely be elected principally on an out of Iraq now platform. Those are only words, of course, we have to remind ourselves. But what appealing words they are. The political space to do otherwise is shrinking by the day. So I'm urging you to keep the shrinkage going. But that's what they're thinking about in the inner circles at the upper levels, apparently. And I think it presents us with a context in which we should be optimistic and buoyant, while at the same time being very aware of the dangers of co-optation and trickery and secrecy and the rest of it. Because all of these calls for withdrawal or faster withdrawal are driven by the situation in Iraq and the political situation here, which is us. My strategy, if you will, it's kind of a makeshift strategy, but it comes partly from my experience, is to see wars as based on certain pillars, and that the ending of a war has to do with putting your pillar in a destabilizing downward spiral. In other words, if we put our shoulders against the pillars, if you have people pressure against the pillars of the war, and you keep the focus there and not get caught up in all the differences and all the arguments about when and how, satisfaction will come. Those pillars will go down. What are those pillars? I've got, I think, only 3 minutes, so I'm just going to tell you, because I think you can easily figure this out. One pillar is you need a plausible Iraqi state. The troops have to be dying for something, right? The president can't go on without some public consensus that there's a viable Iraqi state in formation. Secondly, you're going to need American public opinion, which has declined and certainly is not going to come back easily. Third, you need America media support and cheerleading. That's, thanks to you and all of us, has gone cold. Let me be clear. No newspaper, television station that I know of has ever called or ever will call for the troops to come home. That'll be after they're on the way back. But they've been driven to be more critical, and if you view the media as an arena of struggle like politics, the pressure on the media from the independent media has had some effect. And of course you need troops, not troops that are sent back, that are lied to, that are deceived, that are carrying inadequate body armor around in 140-degree heat. And you need to recruit more and more and more. Over in LA, at Roosevelt High, which is the recruiter's dream zone, the numbers have gone down in junior ROTC cadets from 286 to 162 as of a couple months ago. This is an example of activism pushing on a pillar and pushing it down and down and down. You need budget, you need money for 10 years. That's at $200 million a day and going up. When I wrote my little book and finished it a couple of months ago, or a month ago, we had spent $418 billion on the war, and that translates, thanks to costofwar.com, into money that could have gone for health care for 250 million kids or for 20 million full-time school teachers. So if you put your shoulder to the budget wheel, it means making coalitions with groups that are really suffering tangibly from the drainage of money and resources to Iraq. You need global alliances. It's hard to keep up with the disintegration of the coalition of the willing. I try. You probably try. As far as I know, aside from the United States and the departing British troops, there are only 7 countries represented from the original 40-something, and they're represented in numbers like 112 or 263. So the big issue, I think, for us, the coalition of the willing has gone. We're going to have to concentrate much more on the entity that we call the mercenaries or military contractors.